Good morning and welcome to episode number 51 of the RDO podcast. How are you this morning, Alex?
Yeah, I'm good. I'm good. I'm actually pumped.
Pumped?
I'm pumped because the Olympic opening ceremony was on last night, which Tash wanted to watch. Now, if you would have asked me a week ago, I was saying in the gym next door, like, the Olympics is dead. It should be stopped. I think we've even mentioned on the podcast that it's a archaic thing that ruins nations and victimizes children by turning them into sporting slaves so they can live like their parents can live vicariously through their fame. And I was a massive hater.
That will be me as a parent, but not for an Olympic.
Right. So
you don't make any money out of the Olympics.
Then I watched the opening ceremony and it was obviously very subdued, probably the most subdued opening ceremony since the Munich Games, but very subdued. It was still very good. And I was like, I felt like the special for the athletes. Mm-hmm. And then this morning I switched Channel 7 on and Bruce McAvaney did a opening monologue about it. And man, I am amped now.
Yeah?
Oh man,
Bruce is good.
Such a good job.
Bruce has always been good.
Such a good job. Like, yeah, he's hyping it up. So
are they rolling out Roy and HG this time as well?
Don't know. Because I followed none of it because I was so anti. Yeah. Now, I mean, Brucey's got me in. He did a masterful job.
Yeah, nice.
So I've already downloaded the 7Play app.
Yep.
So I'm going to watch the sports that I like.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm pumped for Australia. So I mean, like, Olympics has got me. Yes, it crucifies. I was thinking, like, how much is this going to cost Japan? Seems like the crowds are empty.
Yeah, so you're not going to get any economic benefit out of it because no ticket sales and no people flying into your country and spending money in the economy to stay there to watch the events. And And
I saw an article yesterday about some Ikazaya, like little pop-up shops that that have opened up in the Olympic Village that are not supposed to be there, but the police are just like turning a blind eye to it because they know that they've gone through such economic heartache that they need the chance to make some money.
Actually, I've heard about that too. Which, look, it makes sense, right?
Yeah, you got to do it. Yeah. You got to do it.
And when you wonder how much money it's going to cost the Japanese government, the Japanese people, it's going to cost them the same amount than if they would have cancelled it.
Yeah, because I was thinking, who gets the digital rights? Will all be Olympics?
I'm not sure.
It won't be the country, surely. The country would get the economic benefit from money spent in the nation and then maybe ticket sales.
I'm really not too sure with what the split is. You'd like to think that there's been some degree of additional negotiation between the Japanese government and the IOC this time around due to the circumstances. Yeah. But I do know that with the way that the agreements work, if the host nation chooses to cancel it prior to the event starting without the approval of the IOC, then the host nation foots the whole bill.
Yeah, it's crazy.
So,
hey?
So
Olympics is dead, but I'm excited for this one.
Look, I'm with you. Main thing I'm pumped up about is it gives the media something else to talk about for the next 2 weeks.
For sure.
So that's going to be fantastic because it's just been all doom and gloom for 18 months.
About for the first week until the swimming's over?
Yeah.
Well, we've got some new sports this time though, right? Surfing's in.
Skateboarding.
Mm-hmm. So that'll be pretty good. I think we've got some people in there. Mm-hmm. It was interesting seeing some of the countries that I'd never ever even heard of, even at my age, and I can't even recall any of them now. But there was three different versions of the Cook Islands or something. There was Antigua. Anyway, I was like, where's that place? And they had heaps of people going there, and I'm like, wow, they must be all athletes. Some very small nations getting, and then there was some. One of the first ones is the second team to come out was the refugee.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it was huge. That was pretty full on. But
I'm sure their team's gotten bigger in the last 5 years than last time around.
Probably in the last 20 years, it's been growing in size.
I wonder how many of them are going to flee and stay in the country. Like, remember when we had
Brazil, Rio? Was it Rio? They disappeared?
No. It was when we had the Commonwealth Games in Australia. That a whole stack of athletes just went missing and they claimed refugee status while they're over here.
Oh.
So
I thought that happened in Rio as well.
Oh, I'm sure it happens every single time. Yeah. If I was a refugee, I probably wouldn't have been trying to stay in Rio. I'd be trying to go...
Wow, Rio's cool, man.
Somewhere. I mean, if you had the London Olympics might be a better choice.
Rio, baby.
Yeah.
Well, okay.
Rio's a great place to go if you got some money.
Have you got a better chance of staying lost in London or in Rio?
Look, if I had to choose a place to live between London and Rio, I'm going to Rio too.
But and you can choose.
Yeah.
They can't.
Yeah.
Now, I wanted to speak about something today, and it was
Sorry, before you get into it, just on the note of the Olympics, what I'm looking forward to in the Olympics, I want to see the next Eddie the Eel.
Yeah.
Remember Eddie the Eel?
Yeah, the sweetheart story.
Yeah, that's what I want to see. I want to see who is that person that's just going to capture the hearts and minds of the world. That excites me about the Olympics.
Yeah, okay.
And look, the Australian men's soccer team's already half done that, beating Argentina 2-0. Who saw that coming?
We all
exactly 0 people.
Yeah, we'll keep an eye out. We'll keep an eye out. Okay, done on the Olympics?
Are we done on the Olympics? Yeah, I'm done. Let's move on.
So, we spoke during the week because I wanted to talk about the Billionaire space race and specifically people's sentiment towards it. But what I found interesting was that you got in your feed, your digital feed, was a very different aspect to the feed that I was getting on my digital feed. So, I mean, tell me, what were you getting? So we're talking about, so in the last weeks...
You've had Bezos go to almost
in his
space.
cock rocket.
Yeah.
And Richard Branson go to space in his Virgin Galactic.
What I have loved about this is how, with especially with Bezos, with the cock rocket, all of the references to Austin Powers movies.
Yeah.
Which you could never release in this day and age.
And the Dictator.
Oh, and the Dictator as well.
The top needs to be pointy. It doesn't help.
Yeah. But yeah, so obviously you've got Bezos, and they've all gone to varying levels of space.
Well, okay, so what I want to start off by saying, they've both bitched it.
Yeah.
To me, that's not space.
No.
You've been on the edge of space? Yeah. That's the edge of space. That ain't space.
Yeah.
At least Elon Musk. Now, I know he hasn't personally gone, but he's gone to space. He's got a car that is gone further than what those guys have.
And also, isn't Elon's plan to actually be in orbit for 3 days or something? Isn't that what he's doing?
I don't think he'll ever be allowed to because
but his rocket, when they launch it, which is soon, is I think his whole play is it's got to be in orbit for 3 days.
Right. Because I think Bezos's was 11 minutes.
Yeah. So it's just varying degrees of.
So So what was your feed? What did you get on your social media feed?
I got very little. I got interesting engineering throws up the occasional story about it, which is nice to see because all interesting engineering has thrown up for the last 18 months has been propaganda. So it's been nice to see some stuff about engineering.
Yeah.
And obviously, if you dive into the comments, you do see all the hate brigade of these billionaires going to space, they could be feeding the poor, blah, 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 blah. But no rich person doing anything ever can make everyone happy. It just doesn't happen.
Yeah,
but to be honest, in my feed, I really haven't seen a whole lot.
So that's all I got was these billionaires should be giving their money to poor people, that it shouldn't be, the government should be looking after it, not companies. How the rockets are bad for the environment. It was a barrage of shit.
Yeah.
Because I like the Billionaire space race. And anyone that's saying that, you should just sell that rocket and feed poor people, well, how about that space travel creates a technology that will pull those people out of, or potentially pull those people out of poverty in the future by becoming more advanced. And I can give you an example. There is an asteroid in space that has enough resources on it to make our whole world's economy null and void. It's got enough gold, and we can make everything out of gold and platinum, and right? So we can sit here and whinge about what's happening here, or we can go out and start fixing some stuff. Or if we are a virus or a cancer on this planet, and there is a great argument that we are, shouldn't we spread? Mars isn't wearing a mask. Let's droplet onto that country, onto that planet, and spread. If that's what we're supposed to do, we should do it.
Yeah.
And
Well, at least that's what Elon's trying to do. Now, your whole asteroid argument, that to me is kind of null and void, because whoever controls the asteroids is just going to control those resources and enrich themselves. So it's not like if one of the, let's say Bezos gets control of the asteroid, I don't see Bezos getting all the resources off it and handing it out to the poor people.
No, but you could, because it's so massive.
You could.
It's so massive. Won't. No, because like there's no point. So what I'm saying is, if anyone grabs that, gold is now worth nothing. Platinum is now worth nothing.
No, but
so that's cool that you've got all that stuff. It's in such abundance. It would negate...
Yeah, I know, but the thing is, look at, like, the diamond trade now. The diamond trade's already manipulated by people in the diamond industry. There's plenty of diamonds actually in circulation, but they just pull them out of circulation to keep the prices high.
But this would be the equivalent of making your driveway out of diamonds.
Yeah, but
out of gravel.
Alex.
No.
Don't be so naive.
No.
Rich people are gonna rich people.
Yeah, but there's nothing that's... It would be like... It'd be like Bezos owning water. Like all the water. Mm-hmm. And that has, it's so abundant that it's basically free everywhere in the world.
Water?
Yes.
That's all.
It is free.
Nah.
It is free. The transmission of it is not. Water is free as part of the some convention. It's free. Mm. So when you buy a bottle of water, you're paying for the bottle and the distribution of it. But the water is free. So this asteroid is like having It's like having an ocean of platinum and an ocean of gold.
Which will be controlled by whoever gets to it first.
No.
You're being very...
But it doesn't matter. Even if that person gets it, now we know that he's got it, it means that this stuff is worth nothing.
No, it doesn't.
It does, because we know that there is access to unlimited amounts
Except we'll just get fed a story about how difficult it is to transport the stuff back, and therefore it'll still be in a limited supply, but that'll have as much as they need to. And then they jack the price of everything up over here.
Space Force. There'll be wars over it, and then it'll be fine.
That is something that I think is a valid concern about the billionaire space race, is that the grant money that some of them have gotten from the American government to assist them in doing it, when that's like the NASA budget. I think that the American government's handed out more grant money in regards to privatized space travel than NASA's budget.
Yeah, but they can do it cheaper than NASA.
I get that too.
So the net result is better.
Yeah, okay.
But so what I'm saying is we should be trying to go to space, and we should let these billionaires have a crack.
Yeah.
Because years and years ago, so I think GFC actually crushed it. America used to have you had to have two companies that would bid for space grants. Mm-hmm. And it used to be, I can't even think of the companies now. But in GFC, one of them absorbed the other. Mm-hmm. So they've had a monopoly on space travel. Mm. And that's when Elon Musk came out and said, I can take your satellites to space and I can give you a free satellite because you can do it for so much cheaper. Yeah. So that's why you need a real space race. We're going to achieve things that we didn't achieve.
And that's the thing. I'm more than happy because for me, like, I want to back Elon because Elon's trying to take us to Mars. Mm. So as far as doing something for the poor people and the human race goes, being able to spread ourselves over two different planets is massive. So I'm all for Elon. Like I'm team Elon when it comes to the space race. And if Elon was to at the same time be able to take control of that asteroid and profit out of the minerals on the asteroid, so be it.
You still don't understand how our economy works when someone has control of that. If someone tapped a resource that was so amazing now that it would change the world. Mm-hmm. Yes, they could control it and they could drip feed it out, but there's no benefit in them doing it.
That's ridiculous, Alex.
No, you need to understand how an economy works.
Okay, how do fuel prices work?
It's a cabal between.
So you got shit tons of oil, which is controlled by certain people who then restrict or throw out supply to suit themselves on the pricing.
Yeah, it's $5 a gallon.
So there's heaps of it.
It's $5.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's worth nothing.
And how much cheaper could it be?
Yeah, it could be.
So I think you're being extremely naive to think that, just because there's a lot of resources up in an asteroid on the sky that we've got access to, if one person has access to it, they're not going to go, great news, guys, here, I'm going to make everything cheaper for you. That's extremely naive.
Yeah, you don't understand how economy
Okay,
works.
I don't understand how economy
No,
works.
but I've just given you the water example. Water is free because it's so abundant. Water is more abundant than what oil is.
So why is Australia in constant levels of drought? If water was that cheap, why couldn't we just get it from everywhere and just take it out to the farmers?
We do that. The transportation costs money. The water is free. The commodity itself is free. So that's my point. It is free. And the reason why we're in constant droughts is because we're putting farms in deserts. Because water is free. That's why we do it. So that's why there is an argument that economists say, put a price on water. If you put a price on water, it moves farms to where they should be and not necessarily where they shouldn't be.
Okay. We can agree to disagree on this.
Well, no, because I've just given you the example of the most abundant thing on Earth. And if you I'm introducing the most abundant forms of the largest abundance of gold, platinum that's on this thing. Well, you research it. Go and research it.
So no, all right, let's talk about the mining companies in Australia who are pulling out Australia's resources of iron ore. How much cheaper has that made iron ore for the regular everyday Australian?
It has got cheaper.
Well, they pull all the resources out which are owned by our country and they profit out of it. And then they control that. It's
not controlled. Ore is not controlled.
Well, it is. Like, if you've got a mine set up somewhere, then you control the ore that comes out of that mine.
But that's only the places that have ore.
Yeah, like an asteroid in the sky. So same thing. If only one person's got access to you're completely naive to think...
They're going to go to war. If was
the case, they'll go to war over the control of the resources.
Yeah.
Just like we've always done forever.
Still create
Whoever's in control of the resources will exploit those resources to suit themselves, which has happened in human civilization forever.
Except with water. The most abundant thing in the world.
Okay, well...
And then we're talking about something that's as abundant.
Righto.
That you're missing that factor. I appreciate what you're saying.
I don't think you do.
I think you're being very but your argument over ore is not more expensive.
Well, I've given you another perfect example. Diamonds. Diamonds was my perfect example.
But there are not
diamonds out there. They are totally abundant. But that whole market is manipulated and controlled by the diamond market.
Yes, pricing is going to change.
Yeah, pricing changes because it's exploited by the people who own the resources.
But if diamonds fell in like rain... then those diamonds that are here would be worth nothing.
That's right, but they're not going to fall like rain if one person controls the resource they get them from.
And I've just told you why it wouldn't be just one person.
All right, guys, put it in the comments.
Put in your comments how Jason doesn't understand how an economy works.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Because it's going to be really easy for all of us to access resources on an asteroid.
No, but the more we do, the more these billionaires start going, and the more these billionaires start, and the governments get on board, and we start figuring out how to do this stuff in space, that could change the fabric of our world. That can change the economy of our world. And we've got examples of when that's happened. Bronze Age, Stone Age, like Iron Age. These things have happened. This is the next version of that. Where we create something that changes the way that we do everything. Yeah, and that could be it.
But if you have a small amount of people that have access to a resource...
It's small now.
They will typically exploit that resource.
But they can... up to a point. Then the economy figures it out. Because they'll realise, okay, we're sitting on a mountain of all this stuff, and we're going to drip feed it to you, or we're going to just dump it and make a gajillion dollars.
Drip feed it.
There's articles on it. Read some articles on it, and that'll explain it to you. Because it'll become like water. If we had another commodity on this planet that was like water, it would change the way that we do stuff. Everything could be made of gold. Everything could be made of... So then the people that had their wealth invested in gold, it's now not worth anything. I understand what you're saying about
how many times have we spoken about how the old system tries to hold on to its power for as long as it possibly can? Why are you expecting this to be any different?
Because the free market will dictate it. The free market will fix it. The market will fix it. If someone's sitting on all of it, someone else is going to go and take it. And then someone else is going to go and take it. And then it will free up. And the more space travel we do, the more opportunity we have to get a piece of it. And it could literally change the way that the world operates.
Yeah, it could do.
We could move into the next... Because we don't know what the next age is going to be. So we think we're in a digital or technological age now. We don't know what the next age is.
No.
But if I had to guess, I'd say it's something to do with space.
I agree.
Whether it be, occupying other planets, mining on other, mining out of this, out of our atmosphere or whatever. We don't know what the future holds, but it's going to be a monumental shift, and it's not, the standard rules will not apply. Earth's rules will not apply when we are interplanetary.
Maybe. The laws of human nature will apply.
But human nature has changed. In some ways over time. Economies
in
have
some ways
changed.
it has,
Economies have
absolutely.
changed.
In some ways it's changed. In a lot of ways it hasn't changed for hundreds of thousands of years.
But that's why you need a race. That's why it's good that not one country's doing it. That's good that multiple
so
people
the race again just goes back to just basic human biology of wanting resources and wanting to control resources, because having more resources than someone else is a good thing.
Yeah, it creates,
and it will be like that forever.
Yeah.
So whoever gets to those resources will want to make the most out of those resources.
Sure, and they deserve to, because they've gone to a massive.
That's exactly my point.
Can you stop interrupting me?
So I was just saying something. You've interrupted me, and now you're telling me not to interrupt you. That's why I'm saying I'm quite happy if Elon gets us to Mars. Elon can have the asteroid.
So what will happen is someone will get out to that asteroid and start figuring it out, but it'll be the most expensive way to do it. Someone else will realise there's a way better way that you can do it, and they'll start doing it for cheaper and more efficiently, and then another one, and another one, and another one.
Except the first person who gets out there, their country's going to stick a flag in it.
And there's a flag on the moon.
There's
multiple flags on the moon.
What resources are on the moon?
We don't know yet, haven't looked. Haven't looked properly. We've just picked up some dirt and drilled some holes.
So when the first person gets to the asteroid and they stick a flag in it and they claim ownership over it.
But I've just given you an example of the moon where...
but I don't hear anyone talking about all the fucking resources coming from the moon, bro. You're saying there's an asteroid out there that's got enough resources on it to make every resource on this planet obsolete.
Yes.
That's got more value to it than the moon does.
But does it? But does it if it's going to cripple our economy?
How's it going to cripple our economy?
Well, sorry, not cripple. Change, modify our economy.
But the thing is, you are trusting the fact that the person who gets out there, who sticks a flag in it first, wants to do the best they can for humanity.
No,
and
I never said that. You said that.
I've not said that either.
You keep talking about the flag.
No. Yeah, I have said whoever gets to it first is going to control it.
And I'm saying that's not what's going to happen.
Okay, well...
Because we've got an example. America does not control the moon.
But this is not... Like, what resources have you ever seen anyone talk about the moon? Apart from the fact it's made out of cheese.
We don't know. Because we haven't looked.
So why... Okay, so why do we know there's an asteroid out there that's got all these resources on it, but we don't know what resources are in the moon? I'm sure scientists have looked into what usable resources are available on the moon. Because we've already been to the moon, so we know that we can get there.
So the resources that are not... that are currently not useful to us now. But on this particular asteroid, that's stuff that we use all the time.
Right, and notice how we're talking about the asteroid, not talking about the moon? Because we can use the stuff on the asteroid now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But when we get it, there'll be so much of it, it won't be worth anything.
Yeah, okay. I disagree.
Yeah.
Anyway, we can agree to disagree on that one.
So I did find it really interesting that people are so caught up in this. I want to say that this is going to sound really harsh, but the small picture, which is like us in the now and our little problems that we have in our world, that they're worried about, like worrying about the environmental dramas of sending rockets to space, to me is short-sighted.
Yeah.
Because you might be able to fix the world, and this is what Bezos said. Our world is so beautiful compared to some of these other planets. Why don't we have a trash planet that we can just chuck all out trash and keep this one nice? Even at just having the ability to do something like that opens our options.
Oh, for sure. And look, tall poppy syndrome's a real thing. So obviously there is going to be a proportion of the population who, if a rich person does something which anyone can perceive as potentially self-indulgent, they're going to hate it, no matter what that thing is. And you're right, it is...
People need to get over that.
Well, to a degree, it is short-sighted. To a degree, obviously, when you've got the global pandemic on and things that are happening, and everyone is thinking pretty internally as to how is my life being affected at the moment. And I guess if you're an American taxpayer who there was all that kerfuffle about, like it took them 3 months once the Biden administration got into office before they sent them a $1,400 stimulus check. So when you have that stuff happening and then you see the government handing out money to billionaires to go to space, I could see how some people would be upset by that.
Bezos didn't get the money that he asked for.
No, Bezos didn't.
No.
So
the grant...
They tried to. they tried to, but it didn't obviously pass. But there was $10 billion that was handed out. But Bezos just didn't get any of it.
Yeah, but there are...
Because Elon got some of that.
Yeah. But like I said before, it's cheaper if they do it that way than if they were to do...
Yeah, but the regular taxpayer who's waited 3 months to get $1,400 doesn't understand that.
Yeah, but do they have internet? Because they might not have internet.
I know, but when people can't eat, then they are less concerned about internet.
But this is where they're short-sighted. Mm-hmm. So this is where they need to open their minds up a bit. It's all the stuff that you use. Yeah, you might be poor, but are you using a phone?
Yeah, of course. And look, there's heaps of that stuff. There's heaps of people who get on their $1,000 iPhone to put a post up on Twitter about, how the rich people need to do more.
Yeah.
There's that whole kind of half socialist movement going through even like the American college system at the moment, because I love watching videos of rich privileged people in the audience having a go at some professor saying like, oh, the rich people need to do more stuff, and they've got their iPhone, they're paying to go to college in a rich country, and then the whoever the lecturer is just goes, okay, so you're in probably the top 10% of rich like wealth in the world. What have you done to fix housing issues? And like, are you just going to give your house to a homeless person?
Yeah, or give up your seat at the college?
Yeah. So yeah. Again, I think that people are very, very much about what's in it for them. And I've also noticed that too with a lot of I think we've mentioned on here before a few times about all of the COVID restrictions and stuff like that. And when you have conversations with different people, depending on how it actually affects them personally is generally their care factor as to what's going on. So for a lot of people who it hasn't affected them at all, they're like, oh no, there's no problem. But then there's other people who may have had businesses shut down or whatever the case may be, who obviously they're super against it because it's how it actually affects the individual as to how they actually perceive the rest of it. Whereas a lot of people don't take a step back and go, how's this affecting all of us as a society who, like, say we're all Australians, how is what's happening affecting the whole of Australia, which, it's debatable as to whether or not that's even worth worrying about.
Well, this will potentially affect the human race. And that's why I think people need to really take a step back and appreciate some of these things. And I think about, like, 1969, the moon landing, and I went and spoke to a lot of people who watched it live, and I'm like, what did you feel? And like, most people said they felt really inspired.
Yeah.
And if we can get inspiration in that, like, that's worth something.
Inspiration's powerful because you're right. There'll be a kid who's 5, 6, 7, 8 years old who will watch these billionaires flying into space, and they'll watch it live on TV, and that will inspire them to go, I want to be an astronaut, or I want to come up with the next most efficient rocket ship, which is going to get us to Mars, or whatever it is. But that inspiration's a really important thing, because for us as human beings, one of the things that we always want to do is we always want to move forwards. We always want to grow and develop, and I think this is why, you're seeing so much of this culture war stuff, wokeness, whatever. Like, we're going through this period of time where we're trying to decide what's worth throwing out and what's worth keeping as we move forward and evolve as a society. And I think anytime you can give mass scale inspiration to the next generation, I think it's a positive thing. And I think the Olympics is probably a good example of that.
The Olympics is a good example, but I also feel like this space race is different to previous ones because of social media. Because people are allowed to, sounds so autocratic, because someone with the shits, the 1% extreme on each side, can have their thing publicly listed.
It's the vocal minority.
The vocal minority, yeah.
Like the loudest people are the vocal minority.
So they kind of poo-pooed on, you know, I bet you when the astronauts in '69, when they touched down, I bet you they weren't commenting on the hat that Neil Armstrong was wearing. You know, like, we're shitting on.
Well, the thing is, I'm sure people were. But you could only comment to your wife, you know, and then that stayed in the house.
Yeah, so does that make it less inspiring then? So obviously you could get more, there's more access to what actually happened, but the fact that you can shit on it, does that make it more or less inspiring?
I think it makes it less inspiring because the problem is that negative news travels faster than positive news. And there's a large percentage of people these days how they feel about anything is based on their perception of what their peers feel about that particular thing. Because they don't want to think for themselves. So back in the 1969, you had all these people at home in front of the TV with their families watching this thing happen. And then they could only talk about it amongst themselves as a family. And I would say the majority of them would be like, wow, that's an amazing thing. How cool is that? So it's a largely positive thing. Whereas now, you've got people who, for one, we don't have to watch it live anymore because you can just go and watch reruns or look it up on YouTube or whatever. So you're not having this collective moment of awe like 1969 was. But then you've also got people who, I mean, whenever any major event happens, there's always a race to the memes. So you've got meme culture, which usually is making light of whatever the situation is. So you're going to... So you're going to have a percentage of the population who are going to run to try to make the joke with the most impact. And then those jokes with the most impact spread like wildfire, which then when you've got that percentage of the population who's like, I really only care about fitting in with all of my people, and then they look online and they see that the majority of it's negative, then they get a negative feeling out of it as well. So I think it does make it less inspiring. But there'll be the next Elon Musk who watched that, who goes, this is cool.
Because the reach is greater.
Yeah.
Yeah, so... And what a lot of people don't realise, do you know that there is a company in Helensvale, like in your suburb, that makes parts for rockets?
Is there?
Yeah, they make fuel systems for rockets.
Yeah, okay.
It's based in Helensvale. You know, and I think it is an awesome achievement, and we should be looking out there. And sure, we can say that we've been trashing this planet, but why not have two or three?
Well, yeah, and that's where I feel like out of the billionaires, I'm Team Elon. I've been Team Elon for a long time because he is trying to solve human problems and make money out of it at the same time. And I'm more than happy to do that.
Yeah.
And you can argue that Bezos has done the same thing because Amazon obviously got as big as it did because it solved human problems. It's creating a lot of human problems now as well. But it's funny how... This is probably another example of how people just think about themselves. So obviously you'll have people who are, say, whinging about the treatment of Amazon workers. There's been a lot of stories, not really in mainstream news, but I get a lot of stuff on YouTube at the moment about the mistreatment of Amazon's workers, especially in the United States, but obviously it'll happen all around the world. And you'll have people who, again, will pick their $1,000 phone up and go and preach about the mistreatment of Amazon workers, but they'll still then go and order a package, which will be delivered by Amazon, and it'll be 2 hours late, and they'll still go on and bitch about it and rubbish it.
Yeah, so I don't. So I really don't like that movement of. There's a few articles on the Amazonification of the US workforce, and we have it here as well.
Yeah, 100%.
Which is like
Woolworths.
Coles, those conglomerates, like the massive companies that are just owning the workforce, and especially during the pandy, when everything changed, those big box guys just got kind of free reign. And because they're so big, it was easier for them to adapt. Yeah,
but it's easier for you to adapt when you're... It's that whole thing about being too big to fail, right? Like they were big enough so that you can easily justify why those guys have to stay open. People need food, people need resources or whatever it is. You can get all those things from a grocery store, so leave those guys open because the people need them.
I don't agree with it because it's, you know... Why was a grocer shut down, but the greengrocers within a...
Yeah, that's where I was getting to, is obviously that's where it then became problematic, because you had small-time operators selling the same products who weren't allowed to operate, and who are consistently being belted every time we go into a lockdown, which obviously... I misplaced my prediction for a lockdown in Queensland this week. I hadn't accounted for the fact that the Premier wasn't going to be here. But it looks like it could happen imminently, right? Like, we've had cases of Delta come into Queensland over the last couple of days. It could potentially happen. But look, hopefully we just stay unlocked for as long as we possibly can. With the crisis that's happening in New South Wales at the moment, I can't help but feel like something will sneak its way through, considering this thing seems to spread as quickly as it does. But fingers crossed we can stay out of lockdown. But yeah, I think we mentioned last week too about how the overall jobs figures have improved during this time. And I do feel like a lot of it's because people are running their own businesses, which have then shut down, who then have now, all the jobs that are available are at big box stores. I mean, we've got a friend ourselves who's just gone and picked up a job driving trucks for a big box store, because you can get that work at the moment. So...
And look, I would usually say that markets like ebb and flow, and people have a hot run, but this in particular has massively financially benefited those guys, massively. Like it was just that distribution of income just went so heavily favoured towards the big guys, and literally cut off from the little guys. That I don't think that will recover. That gap won't disappear. Like, if you survive this, you might be in it. Like, and that's, I feel like that in my own business. I feel like when the car supply starts coming through properly, I'll go back to how I was when I first started, where I do a lot more cars for
smaller margins,
small
more
margin,
volume,
more volume, and that worked out. That was good. That was good. But you need to survive this period.
Yeah. And look, last year I don't think you really noticed it as much, because you had all the government support payments. So you had your JobKeeper payments and JobSeeker and all that stuff. And with those things going away, also in the meantime, like even your experience with how they, like part of the way they were trying to jumpstart the economy was having those government-backed small business loans.
Which were a lie.
Which were a lie, because the banks just didn't hand them out to anyone.
Yeah.
So all of that stuff... Like, I'm positive, and again, I don't have exact examples off the top of my head, but I'm positive that every time we have a lockdown, whichever state it is, a business shuts down. At least a business shuts down. Because I think so many of them have just been, teetering for a long period of time, and they're like, okay, we've got school holidays coming up. And once school holidays comes and we get more people through, that'll give us enough of a financial boon that we'll be able to, last from here. And then, bang, we go on a lockdown again, and... Well, I think some people pack it in. But then you got to think of the stress too of, running a small business is stressful enough in normal market conditions, let alone something like what's happening at the moment.
A massive problem though is, especially Australian tax law, I hope there are some changes, and I can't say, I haven't heard anyone speaking about it, but there is no incentive to put money aside for a rainy day.
No.
Because the way that the tax system works is they just want you to constantly reinvest, grow. And profits are quite heavily taxed.
Yeah.
So that money, if you had $1, you could put the $1 in the bank and then pay 35 cents in tax. Or if you spent that $1 on something for your business, you pay no tax. You pay no tax. The problem is that no one had a war chest, because the tax system does not want you to have a war chest.
Yeah.
There's no incentive to have a war chest. But it would have been really good in this time to have a war chest. So I don't know if there's any talk about changing that in a way that prepares us for these things. Because look, if this happens, look at the ramifications of what this pandemic's done, it'll happen again.
Yeah.
And... will we be ready for it? Because my idea of ready is not just do everything, like have Coles and Woolworths run every aspect of our civilization and let Amazon in and do all that stuff. So if that's the case, well, what are we going to do to make sure that we are better prepared for next time?
And I think that a lot of that comes down to personal responsibility. And like you said, there there is no government incentive to have a war chest of money put aside. You even look at I remember back when JobKeeper and JobSeeker first kicked off, and there was some talk about, after the first 3 months or whatever of the program, where like it was sort of kind of positively weighted, but not really, where they were saying that these payments weren't stimulating the economy the way that they're supposed to, because people were just using it to pay down debt. And I remember those stories, because I remember it sort of hit me like, wow, like we're talking about people paying down their debt as a negative thing.
Yeah.
You know, like isn't that crazy? But obviously that's the mentality, and you're right, because the issue is a capitalist economy is built around growth, and if people take money and sit it aside for themselves and don't use it, then that doesn't contribute towards growth. So I think that's like you said, it's really hard, because that's what our whole economy's built on.
Yeah.
So how can you, I mean, like me personally, knowing that we were going to have Nate, we put aside a war chest, like for a long period of time after we bought the house, to try to make sure that we were protected once we had a baby. And couldn't have been better timing, really, because obviously the whole world changed just after, like, we're literally in the hospital when the first case of COVID was at Gold Coast Hospital. So just lucky that we did that. And we've been able to handle this whole period fairly comfortably.
It wasn't luck, you had a plan.
Yeah, of course, like we had a plan. But
also, you're not disincentivized. As an individual, you're not disincentivized to do that. Because whereas as a business, you are, for tax reasons.
Yeah, but there'll still be individuals too who, if I went and bought investments that say were negative geared or went backwards or whatever, I could still reduce my total amount of tax. So the tax system does still incentivize you to go out and spend your money.
No. So I'm saying, so as an individual, you'll pay the tax regardless. Sure, yeah, you can reduce your tax to buy.
Yeah, but if you then buy an asset,
but a company can't buy investments without paying tax. Like the way the tax structure for business is slightly different too. Like if you're a PAYG worker, you're already paying tax. You're going to pay the tax all the time. It's easy. There's no disincentive to build a war chest as an individual, which there very much is in business.
Yeah, it is a bit different.
Yeah. So I don't know what the solution is, but I just like, it'd be nice if someone a lot smarter than me went, hey, do you know what? Well, how about we just tweak this little thing within the tax system so, in the future, like, I know, maybe if you could allocate a certain amount tax-free of your funds for here we go, I'm thinking out loud. What if there was a pandy investment fund, a national fund, that businesses could invest into tax-free, that created, and I don't know where it's invested, but you would have access to if something like this happens, or if there is an insurance policy or something. There's got to be, surely there could be a financial element that could come out of this.
And I think too, like in a similar sort of vein, as far as building a national war chest goes, I think we also need to consider our actions when it comes to, I guess, using public resources, because we all know that there's that much waste in the public service in every facet. Now, I'm a massive fan of having public healthcare. Obviously, I got my knee surgery for free. Like, that's amazing, right? Major knee surgery, I got it for free because we have a public healthcare system over here. Now, obviously, it's not free. Like, it would have been a massive drain on the public healthcare system, but it allowed a citizen like myself to get really important knee surgery and be able to afford that. So it was good. But, like, I'll give you an example. So, when Amanda was pregnant with Nate, there's all these tests and stuff that you have to get done throughout the period. And she got a test done at like an ultrasound, and they send all the test results to your doctor, and then they say, speak to your doctor about it. So obviously, when you go to get your test, that test done was bulk billed by Medicare. So obviously Medicare, public system pays for that. But then they send the information they could just tell us to a doctor who then called us and goes, hey, this is the information. And the person actually doing the ultrasound had told us all the same info anyway. But that doctor then has a Medicare phone consult, which gets paid for by Medicare. So think about the amount of wastage just there.
Yep.
And if you extrapolate that out over 25 million people in one country, there's obviously a lot of wastage there.
For sure.
I've mentioned it a million times before on the podcast. I know that certain people don't like me talking about it, but the things like the testing, like the amount of COVID tests that we get done, I understand that it's important to know whether or not people have COVID. But these places are getting paid $100 a test from Medicare. That is a massive expense.
Every time the government pays for something, it's wasted.
Yeah. Well,
so every time there is a home buyers grant, childcare subsidy, welfare, all of it is not done in a way, not done in a, what's the word, efficient way.
Yeah.
And causes a lot more, well, it causes damage that a lot of people don't sort of recognise. And I haven't liked I don't like the idea of receiving payments. And look, I've been in the unlucky situation where I've got no assistance.
You've had nothing because you started your business just at the start of the pandy and you had to have 12 months before you could get JobKeeper. So,
but at the same time, I don't want it, and I don't think anyone should want it.
Yeah, because
we are paying for it, and if we're not paying for it now, we are going to in the future. Well, it can't just go on forever.
Yeah, and like they've just released the forward estimates, and it looks like we're going to be in a budget deficit till 2060.
Yeah.
So, and that, again, people, like we've said a few times on this podcast already, people just think about themselves and what's happening right here and now. They don't understand that if you're in deficit until 2060, that means that you're potentially missing out on better infrastructure or better quality healthcare or whatever the case may be. There'll be some sort of service that we will miss out on because instead of our taxpayer dollars going to that service, our taxpayer dollars will go to paying interest on the massive national debt that we've got. So,
and then what irks me a little bit is when you look at the stock market is stronger than it's ever been.
And property.
And property is stronger than it's ever been. Yeah. So, in
an economy that's propped up by government handouts, for property and stocks to be going to all-time highs, it doesn't make a whole lot of sense, does it?
Well, it makes total sense, but it just means that that's not efficient. That's not the idea of propping up the economy. Was not to supercharge it to the nth degree. It was supposed to stave us off a catastrophe.
Yeah,
but if you look at some of the major metrics, we are flying. But
in quotation marks, flying.
On empty tanks.
Yeah, that's probably a good way of explaining it.
Yeah.
Because I was talking to Dad about this the other day, just about the property thing came up, and how it's, obviously we know it's getting increasingly difficult for young people to get a property. And I'll give you an example of from a funding perspective. So when Amanda and I went to buy the CRV for having Nate, we wanted to borrow 20 grand. So not the whole amount, just wanted to borrow 20 grand. And we're both full-time employed at the time, making good money, no other real debts or anything like that, apart from the mortgage. And getting approval for that 20 grand was ridiculously difficult, even though we had more than enough savings to cover that and then a lot more. And the reason why it was difficult was because they asked you, is there going to be any changes to your financial position? And we put down that Amanda was going to go on maternity leave. And they had this massive freak out, going off. And it was, I was selling finance for that company at the time. I know how finance works. So for me, even knowing how difficult that was to borrow $20,000 when you got two full-time employed people making decent money with no real debts, good luck being a young person and buying a property on your own at the moment. And I don't feel like that's going to get any easier.
No, why would it when there's all this incentive to...
So you've had stagnant wage growth for 20 years. Yeah. And the housing prices keep going up. So, and we know that the ability to obtain finance is getting more difficult than it was 20 years ago as well.
That'll change.
Potentially. So when you roll all that stuff together though, young people, if you're lucky your parents will have a property, which either you can use some equity out of it to go guarantor to potentially make it easy for you to obtain finance yourself for a house, or when they pass, that asset will move down to you, and you'll be very fortunate if that happens. If you're not, it's going to be real hard.
Yeah, but see, don't do it. Don't do it. I wouldn't recommend anyone a young person go buy a house now. Don't do it.
Yeah, well, again, it depends what your goals are.
Yeah, for sure. But it's a massive goal. It's a massive goal in Australia. We have this real thing about, having your own home, and it's what we all aspire to. But for what? And I would also argue, if you're a 20-year-old, the house that you're going to buy is not the house you're going to end up in.
Yeah, but even when I say young people, I'm not talking about 20-year-olds. I'm talking about 30-year-olds who
just invest.
I mean, we bought our house because we want to start a family. You want to lay down roots somewhere, and you want to not have to worry about getting inspections done and having to move every 6 months and whatever the case may be. That's why we bought our house, and I'm really, really glad that we did. But there'll be plenty of people in the same situation who are like, okay, it's time to start a family now. Let's buy a house. Who'll be in their 30s, and even then won't be able to do it.
Yeah. My tip is just get invested. Get invested as soon as you can, and commit to long-term investment, and that house problem will not be a problem. Like, imagine being in a position when you're 30, 35 years old and just paying cash for a house.
Yeah, well, that's obviously ideal, right? That's where you'd love to be. And that's the thing that I would change if I could have my time again, is when I was 18, I'd start investing in the stock market.
Yeah.
And I mean, the stock prices now are the best advertisement for doing that ever, because you're going through a global pandemic. By all rights, the economy's going to shit. Like, when you actually feel it on the ground, boots on the ground, everyone knows the economy's not going that great, but the stock market keeps going through the roof. So
there's got to be a correction coming. There's got to be a real, like, I know we've just had one, like, at the start, because the stock market took a real hit last year when COVID first hit, but we've recovered, and some. There will be another. I
still think that the government will find a way to shield from that, because either they throw money at the companies that all the pensioners have invested their money in to keep them going good, or if they all tank, then the investments go away and the government has to throw out money in welfare anyway. So either way, they got to pay. I think they prefer to pay up front rather than pay at the end.
I heard a thing this morning. It was like, is it worth buying shares in an overinflated stock market? And the guy who started Vanguard, he said in 1997, just before the tech bubble burst, because it was a similar situation, very hyperinflated market. And he said, you can go two ways. So if you invest now, if you pay too much for a share, something could happen, and people could overnight realize the true value of that, and then the market drops.
Yeah.
Or those companies that are receiving the 20% on top of what their correct market valuation is, invests into their business and gets an even better result, and then that true market value would raise
with it.
Yeah. So, either way, the best thing to do is just time in the market. Just spend more time in the market.
Here's an idea. I'm not going to say it's a prediction, but here's an idea for an industry that could literally be switched on tomorrow for the government to make heaps of tax revenue. Legalize marijuana.
Yeah, absolutely.
There's a massive amount of tax money. You legalize it tomorrow, you regulate it, so people know exactly what they're getting, just like in America and a lot of countries overseas where they have legalized it. Think of the tax boom that you could get from having legalized marijuana.
And employment, industry.
Yep.
Yeah, now, it would suck now not being able to open a shop to do it, but we should definitely get the ball rolling, because I don't want it just Woolies and Coles getting it.
But the thing is that you can still go to BWS, like you can still go and buy alcohol.
Yeah, but do you know who owns BWS?
Yeah, but you could do it for sure.
I think that's that is an excellent solution. And I mean, I invested in weed shares. Oh, how many years ago now? 5 or 6 years ago, I listened to an ABC article that talked about how where's El Chapo from?
Mexico.
No, not the other. No, who's the other one? What's the other big time? Colombia. So Colombia, when they legalized it, they thought it was going to be worth $50 billion a year in as a market. And then I went, okay, I'm going to go find like an Australian version of it. And there was one I was invested in, and it's done nothing. Still done nothing.
Yeah.
I made a little bit of money out of it. I think I bought them at 4 cents, sold them at 12 cents or something like that. But they're still currently around. They always hold between 9 and 11 cents. But they're probably just waiting for that, like what you just mentioned, like that final tick to say, yeah, we're on. And then they're set up. So actually, that's a really good solution. That is something that should definitely... You know, we're coming up to a federal election. Is there anyone talking about it?
No.
I don't think anyone's talking about it.
No, because look, it's still largely unpopular with traditional voters. So I'm not surprised. Like, it's a hot button topic to come out and tell people who've been, again, accepting propaganda for the last 50, 60 years about how weed's the devil.
Yeah.
So
Gateway drug.
Yeah. So I can see why it's a bit of a political hot potato. But think about
you can still go get absolutely shit-faced.
Well, I mean, before all we talked about was COVID, one of the things we talked about in this country all the time was alcohol-fueled violence.
Yeah.
Right? Like, it was every weekend.
How many weed raged?
Well, exactly. Like, how many marijuana-fueled violence incidents do you hear about?
Yeah.
I mean, the only thing is, like, you only hear about marijuana-fueled Doritos massacres.
Yeah.
Like, rather than, coward punching someone in the head.
Yeah.
So, and also think about the
Coward hug.
Yeah, coward cuddling. But think about the additional benefits to the wider economy too. Like, the sales of fast food is going to go through the roof.
Yeah.
So you're going to have guys getting the munchies. If you smoke a lot of weed, you're probably going to be laughing and go to sleep rather than going and breaking a bottle over someone's face in Surfers Paradise. So your medical bills are probably going to be lower.
I don't know what the... I've not done any research into what how the states have performed since. Like, I knew that everyone was very pro it, and it makes a lot of sense to do it. But I don't know what the byproduct is. I might have a look.
As in, like, in America, where they've legalised it?
Point of view, yeah. To see, like, taxation or whatever, like, how much revenue it's generated, and if the outcomes have been a positive or a negative.
Well, I haven't heard of any marijuana-fueled massacres in America. That's probably been a good start. But yeah, like, you could literally do that tomorrow if you wanted to, and you create a whole new industry.
What's it worth? I mean, what's the alcohol industry worth in Australia?
Yeah, and
is it going to be half the size of the alcohol industry?
I reckon it'll end up being larger than the alcohol industry, and we're all for experimental drugs in this country at the moment. We give them out for free, bro. Imagine being able to switch on a new drug which is widely used and has a long history of safety and efficacy for getting you high.
Yeah, we don't do that. That's exactly why we don't.
And you could actually charge people for it. You make an absolute fortune. You pay for the whole vaccine rollout.
That is actually a really good solution to the problem. And I'm going to be looking at independent politicians that are proving it, and I think that's a good one. That's a good
whoever says it first, ScoMo or Albanese, you're probably getting a massive uptick.
I'm not voting any of them. I'm not voting any of them. I'm going full blown independent.
Yeah.
So
I'll enjoy throwing your vote away.
No, it's.
You may as well get your ballot paper, fold it up into a little triangle, and stick it up your rectum.
I hate this two party preferred.
You can hate it as much as you want.
It's like I thought we're supposed to be in a democracy.
We are.
We're not. No, two-party democracy.
Yeah.
So you pick this one or this one. Well, that's not really democratic, is it?
No, it's not. But like you can pick whoever you want, but not enough people will pick those other parties for it to be worth anything.
If this podcast got way bigger than the like and subscribe, than it is now, and some more people went to work and said, "Hey, let's find El Guido, the independent minister of such and such. Let's give him our vote." Who knows? Could Bradbury it?
The independent minister for Snoochie Boochies.
Could Stephen Bradbury the election? Can you imagine? What, like, you've just predicted, because you've literally just fixed Australia's economy in one policy move.
So I should run.
Oh, you wouldn't get my vote.
Would you guys vote for me? Tell some comments.
I'll vote for the second guy that comes up with the weed. The second guy.
Oftentimes when there's like great ideas, it's usually the second guy who talks about it louder that gets the credit for it anyway.
It's the same with any innovation too. You don't want to be first.
Yeah.
And there's an example of this that's just happened.
Oh, look at the billionaire space race. Whoever goes first, the next one just goes a little bit further out into space, and then they get the credit for it. So
yeah. I think if you say, have you watched any of the launches?
No.
Which one would you rather be in? The cock rocket or the Virgin Galactic?
Cock or a virgin? I'm
Actually,
going,
I did never put those two together. That's really bad.
I'm going.
Well,
with
hopefully
Elon.
they never touch.
Yeah. I'm going with Elon. What is Elon's
Falcon. He runs Falcon rockets.
Oh, Falcon rockets? Yeah, that
SpaceX.
sounds way cooler.
Yeah, but I would say the cabin.
And since Ford beat Holden, it makes sense to go on a Falcon rocket.
Yeah, true. The cabin inside Branson's one looked a lot more comfortable than Bezos's. And do you notice that Bezos is copping a lot of flack for wearing his watch over his spacesuit?
Is he?
Yeah, he's wearing an Omega. He did do something. I've got to give him massive props though. A, for going to space, SpaceX, and B, one of the ladies that he took up was someone that was denied a NASA flight because she was a woman.
Yeah, great PR move by Bezos.
No, I think I reckon that is an extremely amicable thing to do.
Did you hear the thing that she said though that made her sound like an absolute idiot?
No.
So they talked about the blue dot or the blue pearl or whatever. So there's those photos from space of how small Earth was.
Right.
And she literally goes, I thought we were gonna see like the blue dot, but we didn't go out far enough. It's like I can see why they didn't take you up last time.
Oh, we're already on the moon, are we?
Yeah. So that was pretty funny.
When enough is never enough for a woman.
Do you think Bezos would be upset with the fact that he actually built the rocket in his own image and now everyone's calling it the cock rocket?
No.
Because he looks like a penis.
I don't care. I reckon who cares? It's huge. Like, who cares?
bigger than
If it was
yours.
a really small rocket, like if it was a rocket, like ROCKETTE, if it was a rocket, maybe you'd be self-conscious about it, but it's massive.
Yeah, it should be
painted black, but no, props to them both. And when Elon won't be allowed to do, because Bezos had to quit. He had to step down from CEO of Amazon to be allowed to do it.
Didn't Elon buy a ticket for Branson's, though? Wasn't that his way around it? Wasn't he going to go to space with Branson? Because he couldn't go on his own because he's a CEO, but he doesn't want to step down from being CEO, so he just bought a ticket to go with someone else. I thought that.
I thought the offer was on the table. I don't know if that's if he had taken it.
Yeah, okay.
But Elon's busy. He's got things to do.
Elon shouldn't go to space. Elon just needs to stay on the ground and just worry about sending us to Mars.
Yeah, he needs to get it done.
Can you imagine, talk about inspiration of watching stuff happen live. Could you imagine if Elon went up in a spaceship and it exploded? And it would be like, now we're stuck here. Fuck.
Yeah. And that's exactly the reason why he won't be allowed.
Yeah.
He won't be allowed up.
Yeah.
There you go. Put your inspiration below. Did it inspire you to make a massive phallic version of what do you see in a rocket?
It looks like a Diane Johnson.
Yeah.
Also put in the comments, will you vote for me for PM? Will you support my policy of legalised marijuana?
That is the best policy out of the two-party I don't prefer. Mm-hmm. That is by far the best policy that I've heard. And it will it'll fix many problems that we've got.
Oh, I've got another policy. Do you want to hear another policy? Ban negative political advertising.
Yeah.
That's my next policy that I'm running on. You can only talk about the things that you're going to do. You are not allowed to talk about the opposition or any of their stuff.
Yeah.
You can only put forward the positives of what your ideas and policies are, because a lot of that political advertising is paid for by taxpayer money as well. So
a lot of donor money too.
That's
a lot of industry. What's it called? What's it called when you
bribes.
Yeah, they're bribes. There's a nicer word they use for
they're
donations.
Yeah.
Bribes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's my other policy. So legalised marijuana and a ban on negative political advertising. You're only allowed to talk about the positives of your own policies.
Yeah.
That's what I'm running on.
And
So vote 1, Jason Von Cannell for PM. We'll see you next time.
My second preference.